and I'd really like to introduce you to Beth Lewis. So if you've not met Beth before, she's the Managing Director of Projects in Brighton, which is a co-working space. They've been partners, members, supporters of what we're up to since the very beginning. They're very aligned with supporting purpose-led businesses by creating amazing spaces for them to run their good businesses and to connect with other people. And so Beth, when I talked to her about this session, she shares, like me, this real curiosity, as well as understanding that a business is much more than just the idea and the business you're running. As humans, we actually impact what we're doing, and we sometimes have to look internally and understand what's going on for us so that we can be the best, business owners that we want to be. Now, we do a lot around well-being, and whether it's kind of yoga or breath work to look after ourselves. But the conversation we had was going a little bit deeper. It was, the whole world has shifted massively, and our needs as individuals, we all be in completely different spaces, and we'll need different things and require different things to make sure that we are on the kind of path that we need to be. So she suggested having a session where we really look at that and just focus on, what do we need right now? How do we actually connect with that? And how can we actually then focus on the year we've got coming up to nourish ourselves in a very different and much more deeper, meaningful way. So she's done some kind of research. This is not an area that she's like an expert in. Like I said, she's a founder looking to share what she's discovered to support other people in the community. I think that should be enough to get you started, Beth. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm just going to share my screen. So thank you so much for joining me. So yeah, as Sarah says, I run Projects in Brighton, which is a co-working space. As she also says, the thing that's really is my passion with running projects, which I have for the last couple of years, is not just focusing on the ideas behind business, but supporting the full person. So we kind of categorize everything into work, rest and play, and strongly believe that work is only a very, very small amount of what makes a business great and what makes us productive and happy humans. And it's been a bit of a journey running a co-working space, where particularly over the last year, because obviously what we really care about is bringing everybody together and sharing a space and sharing a physical space so that everyone can collaborate and share ideas. I mean, over the last year, all the advice has said, don't do that. So it's been a really interesting time for me running projects, because like everybody, the global pandemic really affected us, and we had to really pivot about what this business is and what we mean. Are we relevant now? How do we support our community? And we had a big amount of soul searching this time last year about what our purpose is in our community. And we realized that, for the year that we had coming up, we had to really look at what we cared about, and we came to the conclusion that it is supporting our community. So we did tons of things. We were doing self-employed summits and small business help and mental health summits and loads of events and resources. We were lobbying the government with Caroline Lucas. We did so much stuff to kind of support our community and just keep the small business economy growing. And on the back of that, I was asked to create a lot of resources for a variety of magazines and websites and lots of things like that on supporting people's mental health. And my background is in running kind of large wellness events for people all over the world. So as Sarah says, quite often my instinct is to reach for the meditation script, to reach for some breathing exercises, jump on a yoga mat, and then tick, we're all done, we're all well again, happy days, and everything's good. However, from the experience I've had and from reading up on how millions of small businesses have been affected by the global pandemic, it doesn't feel true that we just focus on these small aspects of, mindfulness and wellness and all of those things. And it didn't feel appropriate to only recommend these things. So it kind of prompted a bit of research for me into what is, true fulfillment, what is true wellness, what makes us feel good, even in times of, where like the seas are raging and there's all sorts of things going on. What else? What does feel good? So that led me on to what is wellness at a time of such great uncertainty. So about a decade ago, or maybe a little bit longer ago now, the things that I hold really dear to me and things I really care about, meditation, all of those sorts of things, had like a bit of like outside of Tibet, had a bit of a woo-woo with about it. And now investment bankers are doing it, the military teaches it to the Marines. Kind of this ancient Eastern wisdom has been kind of packaged up everywhere, and sold from Silicon Valley to school children. It's all over the place. And it's almost become, happiness is almost becoming this sort of consumer product. So governments are like kind of in on it and are like kind of pushing gross national happiness as a alternative to GDP, as a way to measure national prosperity. And that is amazing. That's so great that we're focusing on contentment, fulfillment, happiness. But it's kind of tempting to believe that this is because of, everything else is done. We're all good, everything's great, and it's all just sprung up because of prosperity, and all of our basic needs are amply satisfied, and now we have all the time and the resources to kind of just look at our higher goals. I don't believe that in the last year that this is true. I've done a lot of work over the last year supporting small businesses, self-employed people, not to kind of really hammer the point home, because we all kind of know the situation we're in, but 3 million taxpayers in the UK aren't eligible for any assistance from the government, and because of COVID, and the impact of this has been really notable. So failure, like increase in feelings of failure, lots of people are having panic attacks, phobias, even terrible suicidal thoughts. All of these sorts of things are coming up at the moment, and it doesn't feel right to, for me, doing all this research, to look at all of these things, and then for me to lean on mindfulness and meditation. It feels like we are, there's a bit of a gap between wellness and where everybody's sort of mental health is now. So things like yoga and meditation aren't making us happy at this time of sort of great uncertainty. Perhaps we should explore what will. So just a quick caveat, unfortunately, I can't solve all of the problems that everybody's facing. So I can't solve the impact of financial assistance. Although I can signpost to lots of people who are able to support in that way. But this workshop, I'm hoping, is going to be a sort of a personal, practical workshop to seek your own personal fulfillment, check in to make sure that your needs and the things that really matter to you align with what you're doing currently. So what you can expect. So let's move myself out of the way. So we're going to start off with an exercise, which is a framework to help you assess the areas of your life that are truly most important to you. Probably quite a few of you are going to have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whether that's truthful in our lives now. Discussing what a self-actualizer is and how you could possibly become one. And another exercise, which is the Japanese concept of ikigai, and that's how we align our passion, mission, profession, and our vocation. This feels very aligned to what Good Business Club are all about. So hopefully as members, it should be something that's a good check-in for you to have a look. So 10-minute exercise to uncover the areas of your life that are most important to you. So I am just going to put into the chat a link. So on there, you are going to find this resource needs assessment. So this is a way that we're going to be identifying the things that are most important to us. So just spending about 5 minutes, first of all, what you're going to be doing is circle or just star next to each factor and how that factor influences your decisions in your life. Don't think about it too much, and just doing the table. So 1 is not at all influential. You don't think about it at all. It doesn't affect any of your decision making. And number 5 is extremely influential and really, really important to you. Feel free to unmute yourself, by the way, and just ask me any questions at any time. And hey, I'm going to do it too. And when you've starred and circled all of the factors in your life that are influential to you, looking at the ones that you've graded highest, so the things that impact your decision making the most, just going to list 5 in the box below. So just gut instinct, what feels the 5 feel most important to you. And then stopping there, don't go on to step 3. Cool. I'm going to give everyone until 4:26. PowerPoint stuff. So how did everybody find kind of like rating your needs in that way? Cool. Any kind of surprises? No, Sal, you know.
It's good to revisit it, having not done it for a while. It's quite tricky to narrow it down to 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, they'll shift and change, and you know, it'll kind of go all over the place, but it's kind of just good to just have an idea of that.
Yeah.
So with your needs in mind, I'm just going to quickly introduce you or remind anybody of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow was a humanistic psychologist, and where other psychologists were looking at what you know, people that had fault or difficulties in their life, Maslow was concerned with motivation. So in a very kind of old, somewhat outdated in my opinion, framework, there was a 5-tier model of human needs, which is depicted in this kind of pyramid. So Maslow stated that people are motivated to achieve certain needs and that some needs take precedence over others. Our most basic need is for physical survival, and this will be the first thing that motivates our behavior. And once that level is fulfilled, the next level is up, is what motivates us, and so on. So it's really interesting. I've done that framework with lots of different people, and I won't make you share your needs because it feels very personal to some people. But for some people, you know, sense of adventure doesn't influence their decision making whatsoever. For some people, looking at their, like, making sure that they have basic household goods, very, very important. So for some people, they can't really get past this, the first level of their needs, which is their physical needs, because they're looking for shelter, clean water, food, sleep, etc. So the 5-stage model can be split into deficiency needs and growth needs. So the first 4 stages of the pyramid are referred to as the deficiency needs, and the top level is known as growth or being needs. So the deficiency needs are said to motivate people when they are unmet. So if you lack these, you will want to get them. So the need to fulfill such needs becomes stronger the longer they are denied. So if you haven't had any food, you're going to become hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. Traditionally, people say that you must satisfy this sort of lower level before progressing on to the next level. So, and then once the deficit need has been satisfied, then you can grow on and become kind of habitually directed towards meeting the next set. Maslow said that every single person in the world is capable and has the desire to move up this hierarchy, but unfortunately progress is often disrupted. So life experiences, divorce, loss of a job, all of those sorts of things can fluctuate. So particularly for people who tend to, as we've seen it this year, the whole of the pandemic, people who naturally maybe have contributing a lot, they have high degrees of creativity, high degrees of spontaneity, lots of confidence, they achieve great things. If their sense of, their ability to ensure that they have shelter, clean air, food, water, sleep has been impacted, they've gone right back to the beginning. So traditionally looking at these needs helps us work out where we are. And so if you are looking at wondering why you're not able to really dedicate yourself if you're experiencing some symptoms of burnout, it might be worth looking, have I had enough sleep? Have I been drinking enough water? It all sounds very simple, but kind of having this framework is a very useful tool to refer back to. So this kind of pyramid has been kind of shifted about quite a lot. So a newer one does also include kind of cognitive needs as well, esteem needs. So whereas just looking at your safety and your physiological needs, and then looking at your love needs, your esteem needs, it also looks at seeking knowledge, meaning, self-awareness. Do you have beauty, balance, form in your life? And then looking into self-actualization. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about self-actualization in the moment, but it's worth just quickly having a look at the 5 very important areas in your life that you've just noted now, and just seeing where they sit on this pyramid. So, maybe the needs that you have right now that aren't being met, the things that are influencing your decision, do sit in the 4 areas which are kind of your deficiency needs, or are you able to be growing? Let me know if that makes any sense, or if you have any questions.
Beth?
Yes, please, Toby.
Well, one of mine was living environment. I'm trying to work out where that would fit.
Yeah, so that's interesting, isn't it? So when you say living environment, is that kind of what sort of house you live in, or is it, where you live in the city?
It was more that I love living here because I get to go in the sea and run on the hills, and stuff like that basically is really important to me.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're trying to satisfy is one of your most basic needs, which is having access to air, shelter, all those sorts of things. But equally, you're thinking about your aesthetic needs as well. So you're thinking about the beauty of where you living. I assume when you say here, right in the Brighton and Hove area, and being able to appreciate those things, which is a really, really good point. And it kind of leads me on to my next topic to have a think about. I'm not sure that life is always completely like this. I'm not sure, is life really like this, where we are kind of like trekking up a big mountain and then mastering each level until we've won. I'm not sure if kind of looking here at our biological and physiological needs, it's not also equally the same as beauty. Like, I need a house, and then that is very basic, but equally I like to live in a house that's got some art on the walls and things like that. So when we're thinking about our needs and what truly makes us fulfilled, I don't know if this kind of hierarchy of needs is fully comprehensive. So I've been reading about a boat and thinking about should we take the spirit of Maslow's pyramid which is that our needs are grouped into these 2 main classes, the deficiency and growth, and kind of redesigning the metaphor. So when we look at this boat, we need a boat to protect us, and each plank of sort of security, connection, feelings of respect, worth, confidence, they all give us the ability to kind of weather storms. So we're in our boat, we're in our water, we haven't had to climb up, we're kind of safe. If we've got those deficiency needs met and we're well looked after, then we're able to kind of think about some other things. But having a secure boat isn't really enough for real movement. So it is, you kind of also need a sail to be able to move. You might be protected and feel secure, but you might not really ever go anywhere. And the idea behind the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is to be able to have a tool to look at, yeah, I've got these things sorted, so I can go on to the next one. And really, for most of us in the Western world, we probably, for the most part, have all of our security needs met, but we need to start opening up our sail for purpose, love, exploration, etc. And very cheesily, the more you open up the sail, the more wind you capture, helping you explore and adapt. There's the word at the top, which is where we can have a look at the word transcendence. And I don't know if anybody has what that kind of means to people, the word transcendence.
Like going beyond?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, transcendence is kind of going beyond this kind of we've kind of met all of our self-esteem, connection, safety, security needs, and we've met our growth needs. And then we're looking at how we use those achievements, how we use the purpose, love, exploration to transcend and have and you know, share it with our communities, have these kind of peak life experiences that transcend beyond kind of the kind of the day-to-day realities of our life. And that really in my experience and my understanding from lots of businesses and business owners and self-employed people and all the sorts of people that I've spoken to, is where we find true fulfillment, true passion, true joy in everything that we do. But we need to kind of look at our individual needs first to kind of get there. So the people who are able to transcend and look beyond their own individual needs are called self-actualizers. Has anybody heard of a self-actualizer before? Yeah, we've all heard of those. Great. For anybody that hasn't, I'm just going to assume that some people haven't. Again, Maslow stated that human motivation is based on people seeking fulfillment and change through personal growth. Self-actualized people are those who were fulfilled and doing all that they were capable of. So the growth of self-actualization refers to the need for personal growth and discovery that is present for a person's life. And so for Maslow, a person is becoming and never remains static in these terms. So even Maslow in his pyramid is saying that you don't just fulfill all your needs and then you transcend into self-actualization and then you're done. You're always growing and moving. So a kind of good definition of people who are self-actualizers are the people who have peak experiences. So this occurs when a person experiences the world for what it is, and they are the feelings of wonder, euphoria, joy. You know, sounds amazing, and it's a continual process rather than a fixed state of happy ever after. And I'd just be interested, I'm going to put onto the next slide the characteristics of a self-actualizer and just seeing if you feel they relate to you. So they perceive reality efficiently and can tolerate uncertainty. They accept themselves and others for what they are. They are spontaneous in thought and action. They are problem-centered and not self-centered. Unusual sense of humor, which is a really interesting one, and I guess is a subjective. Able to look at life objectively, highly creative, resistant to enculturation, but not purposefully unconventional. So no, they're not trying to go against the grain, but just naturally kind of have this within them. They're concerned for the welfare of humanity. They're capable of deep appreciation of basic life experience. They establish deep, satisfying interpersonal relationships with a few people. They have these kind of peak euphoric experiences. They also respect their privacy. They like their time by themselves. They have democratic attitudes, and they have strong moral ethical standards. So just a quick discussion. Do you feel that the lower needs of the diagram in Maslow's, what is it called? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is written there, need to be satisfied before self-fulfillment can take place for you? Sal says no, firm no.
Do you want me to say more than no?
Please, if you'd like to.
Well, the problem I see with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's based on an individual, not a cultural aspect, which is a very Western concept versus Eastern concept. So an Eastern concept doesn't see this the same. And inherently, this is a Western concept. And then, of course, the problem is that if you think of someone who's in the spiritual bliss, like, your spiritual power, whatever version that is going to look after you. It doesn't matter that you've got no house right now because you've got something more powerful. Look at the monks, look at any of those traditions. I hang out in the top spot a bit more often probably than I should, and I don't take care of the basic things because I'm interested in the higher stuff. And then, of course, that means on a very practical level. So I, for me, don't see it, but I think that depends on where your internal mindset is about where your value set. Because like being on the street could be a really interesting experience. I'm not saying it's a good one, of course, but it could be an interesting experience to overcome. Whereas someone else, and I've worked with people who've got a lot of resources and they are, they don't feel safe, psychologically safe. So, and they got all the money in the world. So what does that tell us about the hierarchy? So I think it's got flaws, but I think it's nice to fragment it and break it down and have a good look at it. That's just my experience.
Absolutely. So it's really interesting that you say that you spend a lot of time in that state of transcendence, but aren't so focused on the needs below. I'm not going to ask you to answer it, but it would be an interesting to reflect on for yourself. Whether you do feel fulfilled in just achieving this kind of like the higher point of transcendence, and not I don't like it being a pyramid, but not these kind of like biological and physiological needs. And it's really interesting with, as you say, with the Western world, with this focus on this pyramid, because this is a further discussion, but I've noticed a lot, say like bigger corporations, businesses, having a real focus on yoga and meditation and all of those things kind of like higher up the pyramid, but maybe not supporting safety needs, making sure that employees feel safe in a business, and it's this focus that we do have on the Western world. We're like, oh, we've got to climb the pyramid and get to the top, and then not look at the fragmentation of that.
Okay, so one thing I played with this model before myself is to look at it in a circle model, just as it might be interesting. So if you draw it in concentric circles going out, then you can look at it more a bit like the donut economics model, where there's circles going out, and you can say, well, I've got a bit of a hole here, I've got a bit of a weak point here, so but the rest of it holds me together, and yet I'm not complete yet. So for me, I play with it in circles, and it's quite interesting because, of course, implicit in the circle there's growth and change, and it's actually more in line with nature, because nature happens in circles rather than straight lines. So again, just changing perhaps the way it's presented and the way we perceive it can really open up. Not that, spot on, it's really simple. If you're not paying the bills, you're going to be in trouble. And then if you're going to be in trouble, you haven't got attention to put on community or family or those things. So we do need the basics met. But my feeling is you don't need the basics met to self-actualize. I think you need to have an understanding of something more important, whether that's global community, climate change, your local community, family, something that has a higher purpose. My feeling is that. So for most, it's probably got to have the basics, but not all.
Really great point. And it actually really leads me well onto the next thing I'm going to discuss. Thanks, Sal. Toby, did you want to say something?
That was really interesting. I like the circle idea as well, Sal. I think of it more as a mixing desk, where you've got the different levels, and actually, just it's not that they cancel each other out. It's just one tunes down and one tunes up at certain points and certain times. So if you're not feeling very well, your health tweaks up, right? It suddenly becomes very important to you. But it doesn't mean the other stuff goes away completely. So I think of it in that way rather than completely, as Maslow was kind of saying, ching, 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 you're done. Now you're focusing on this one.
Absolutely. And it's probably worth noting for Maslow, who isn't here to defend himself, that he never expected it to be structured into a pyramid. From the research that I've done, he very much saw it as a concentric circle or as something like that. He very much saw it as like we're not able to just climb this mountain and then we're done and then we're sorted. And it's very interesting that we bring up the juxtaposition between the east and the west, and that kind of that how we focus on those sorts of things. I want to talk about this more. We're gonna do one more exercise, which is very much about fulfilling and finding a more purpose at all, which is the concept of ikigai. Has anybody come across ikigai before? You have, yeah? Well, Toby, have you come across that one before?
I've seen this a few times. I've not read about it at all or studied it, but I've seen this a few times. I quite like the idea of it.
Absolutely. It feels very much, for Good Business Club members, it feels very much the core of what Sarah and the team care about. So ikigai, for those who don't know, is a Japanese concept that means a reason for being. So the word refers to having a direction or purpose in life, that which makes one's life worthwhile and towards which an individual takes spontaneous and willing actions, giving them satisfaction and a sense of meaning to life. So basically at the core of it is, what do you love? What does the world need? What do I get paid to do? And what am I good at? So just very quick fire. I've given 60 seconds per this, but I'm going to give you probably 30 instead, just because it's a big topic. Just with a pen and paper or notes or anywhere like that, just going to just check in with yourselves on the following things. So 30 seconds. What are you good at? Listing down your skills and your strengths. Next, what you love. 30 seconds. Okay, next, so finding our passion. So looking through the two lists and finding overlapping and connected areas. So things that are your skills and your interests. Next, thinking about what you believe the world needs. So instead of focusing on some larger than life concept, focus on very little changes that you can contribute to your local community or organization or whatever feels good. 30 seconds to do that now. Looking at your mission. So looking at your passion, which you wrote down, which are the things that you're good at and your interests, and then looking at what the world needs, finding a connective area there. So the interest and the need. Okay, next, listing your current source of income, or what, if it's not that, what you can do to get paid. Next, 30 seconds again, your vocation. So how can you link your mission and your income? Now it gets a bit complicated because you have to remember what your mission is, and your income to help you identify a vocation that allows you to earn and give back to society at the same time. Let me know if anyone needs reminding what your mission is. Next, looking at your profession. So identifying your profession, looking at the skills you listed, first of all, and then how you get paid. And then once you've completed the steps above, you're combining your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. And you'll have a rough idea. I mean, not in 2.5 minutes, with a bit more time, of what your ideal career might look like or be. And then just very quickly, just a bit of a thought. Does this kind of align with the most important areas that were in your life from the beginning? This is something that can marry up. So the idea of self-actualizing, having your security, having your all of your needs being met, and then being able to self-actualize, having the ability to find fulfillment, to explore, to find purpose, to find love, all of those sorts of things, transcend, support the community, find your vocation, your mission. All of these things, to me, are what become true fulfillment and true well-being and true support. What I'm really conscious to from my own self, from being someone who has experienced burnout, experienced difficulties with the business, experienced the whole business turning on its head, and being like, oh my goodness, I run a co-working space in the middle of a pandemic, what do I do? Just seeking out these tools to be able to explore what my true needs are, what my true mission is, all of these sorts of things, and then having, using this kind of hierarchy of needs framework so that I can grow, and understanding and maybe respecting that, if I am worried about supporting all of, making sure that all of my team is still getting paid in the middle of a pandemic, maybe I won't be able to support lots of other people and transcend that way. So then, all of these other things, mental health wise, compassion based practice, all of these things can kind of come back into it, but you can identify this framework of what you need and where to go from there. So for me, it's been a bit of a learning experience to not just try and paper over some true deficient needs that I might be having, worries about security, safety, and try and transcend before having a real good concept of what my passions are, my mission is, and making sure that I am in the right role, and just continuing to check back on it, because this stuff for business owners and founders and self-employed people, it might feel like second nature. However, we can so easily get misaligned, and we can so easily kind of go on to this sort of like lopsided development of chasing our mission, and really being mission led and trying to support our communities and all of those sorts of things, with forgetting maybe we're not feeling passionate about it anymore, and all of it, and we're just trying to like keep it. And the concentric circles is a really good point that Sal brought up, which is why I really like the concept of ikigai, because you can kind of just check in and make sure, with this Venn diagram, that everything is kind of overlapping. Maslow said that only 1% of the population are going to be self-actualized people, who these people are going to be transcending and finding true fulfillment and really growing within themselves. And he kind of said, self-actualizing people are, without one single exception, involved in a cause outside their own skin, in something outside of themselves. They are devoted, working at something which is very precious to them, some calling or vocation in the old sense, or the priestly sense. They're working at something which fate has called to them to somehow, and which they work at and which they love, so that the work-joy dichotomy in them disappears. One devotes his life to the law, another to justice, another to beauty or truth. So it's just having a really true, good understanding of what your needs are and what you're trying to give to this world, which for me, in this very early start of my journey, don't profess to be an expert, is really helping me guide in where I want to go in business and in my life, and trying to keep those aligned. So it's been really helpful to me. So thank you very much for sharing, and love to chat about it if anybody has any questions or things.
That's very good. Thank you, Beth.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, it's the perpetual purpose question, which seems to be going around and around for lots of people at the moment, I think, including myself. That how do you grasp at a purpose outside of yourself, and one that should drive you on and on to be doing more stuff, I think is the key thing, as opposed to having it just as something you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, it was definitely over the last year, my whole narrative of what I tell myself, which was, previously, I run a building, and it's really lovely, and people come in and then they work. And now it's completely shifted into a kind of more encompassing purpose of support and growth, and like feeling very much part of this ecosystem within myself and within the business and within Brighton. And that's how I'm trying to start finding my wellness within that. So it's it's a very fun thing to get stuck into. Go on, Sal.
I was going to say, I enjoyed visiting Maslow. I've been around the block with him, and I've got to say, I'm not a fan of the model. So I catch in my own bias when we started. Like, but actually, what was interesting was to revisit and I tried to park my bias, by the way, and revisit the basics. And, you know, one of my old masters used to say, trainers used to say, mastery is doing the basics well. And actually, you know, fundamentally, like in a system, like in the economy, if you can't provide for people, if you can't make money or whatever the elements are, something fundamental is missing. So we can't make, you know, let's say Brighton Council, if we haven't got any money, we can't make the parks nice, or we can't put stuff on for people. If it's a business, so it reminded me, because I can be up there in the higher spheres of global consciousness and floating around in an existential challenge, and think, no, actually, you should be doing some paid for work today. So thank you. It's kind of because of course we're all very comfortable where we're comfortable. So of course someone might be, you know, not able to look at themselves in a deep self-awareness, but they'll graft and, you know, they'll turn over money or they'll do some good stuff like that. And I'm possibly the other way. Let's have a spiritual conversation, we'll go deep and understand how the mind body works, but I might forget to earn a few extra quid this month to put into my new charity, which I've just signed up, Sarah, by the way, Ecology.
That's brilliant, Sal. And that's by no means do I proclaim to be anywhere near this transcendent level that you are at, but it's absolutely where I can, and you know, spending so much time meditating and you know, looking after that self, but actually not 100% being certain that was always enough for me. So it's been really interesting to kind of open up that discussion and revisit the back to basics and having a look at what our true purpose and needs are. Yeah,
I would like to say that because a lot of people, you know, I remember I had COVID in January, which some people say, you had COVID, you know, because I'm into fitness, I do loads of stuff, I do teach yoga, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, I'm human, right? You know, so sometimes I'm not on the spiritual plane. Sometimes I'm a pain in the bum, but, you know, because we're human. And I think that's the other thing. There's this sort of sense that we're going in one trajectory. And if you're, you know, let's say evolving as a person or as a business, when actually it's much more, in my experience, wave-like, like we go through cycles. So sometimes I'm in a really, you know, say robust cycle. Other times I'm in maybe an insecure cycle. But I think if you can get in the middle of it, you can watch it a bit easier, and you don't get caught up in the spin a bit more. So, but yeah, really lovely. And is it Ikagi? How do you pronounce it?
Ikigai.
Ikigai, yes, I've seen it. I've played it before. I haven't done it for ages. It's great fun. And you know what's lovely is it reminded me why I teach and why I help people get calm. Because it was like all the things that matter to me. It's like, actually, it's because if that was not anything that I'm doing right now, I might need to revisit. So really helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Sal. It's my absolute pleasure. And it was my sneaking suspicion that actually most people who are members of the Good Business Club would be pretty aligned with what those things are. But it's always good to check.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Beth. I was going to kind of just echo some of that. I think that, like what Toby said, that element of that purpose, when people talk about it, and trying to discover that for themselves or their business, I think this is such a nice way of also looking at it, of really discovering that for yourself. But I think what really resonated with me is when we're talking about that, the different things, like I was all basic needs. I've had to move house during the pandemic, so I was very much focused there, but also very aware of how much, how nourishing it is doing work that serves other people and actually having that even in a big shift. So although there's a lot of that, so I think when you started tapping into that, it not being a pyramid, and for me that was all new, actually looking at Maslow in a very different way. And like Sal and Toby, I'd seen Ikigai, and my mum's even given me a book about it, but hadn't actually explored it yet. So it was really nice to see that in comparison with it as well. And I think one is like giving yourself permission to, like, sometimes things aren't going where they are. And I would love the mixing board, Toby. I think Maslow could have been a bigger hit if he had focused on a mixing board rather than a pyramid. But I think that's so true. Just as a business owner, you're doing a lot of stuff and you are, you know, serving other people, but also checking on yourself and being aware of what's going on. So and comparing to other people, right? I think that's really important. Someone else is in a completely different headspace than you, and we compare way too much as if life is exactly the same for them. I think that's really kind of powerful to be aware that everyone's completely different and therefore experiencing life differently and impacting it differently. So No, thank you so much. And just like bringing your own experience into this, right, of exploring it for yourself and your business, like you said, that had to like completely shift during a pandemic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really, yeah,
it was it's really, I remember when I spoke to you first of all, Sarah, I was just, you know, about doing this workshop, you were kind of saying, oh, you know, I'm moving house, I'm doing all of these things, blah, blah, blah. And you know, you can keep everything balanced. It's not like you have to drop you know, the pyramid crumbles and you have to drop everything immediately. But for me, where this framework is starting to become really, really helpful in my own journey of growth and personal development and mental health, is having compassion for myself, that maybe I won't be able to do all of these other 6 things really, really well to the best of my ability when I'm moving house, when I'm worried about this, when I'm, you know, all of these sorts of things. And it's, I mean, I'm looking forward to kind of incorporating this into my own therapy journey and all my own mental health, and seeing just, you know, very black and white, struggling because of this or etc. So it's a good thing to be incorporating.
Yeah, super. Was that everything from you, Beth, or did you
I'm all done.
Excellent. No, thank you very much for that, and for the exercise and the resources as well. So I'll link the recording of this in the Slack channel with the resource linked as well, Beth. I think I'll leave it there, actually, bring it to a close, but thank you very much for your time and taking what you've learned and discovered to share with us. I think a lot of people that will be exploring this for themselves and kind of learn something new, a new perspective. And I'll make sure people can link up to you, or I'll share your kind of contact details if they want to pick your brains a bit further, or potentially talk to Sal, Toby on the call here as well to explore that. I think it's powerful to share our own lessons with each other.